All right, the time on my clock shows 1 p.m., so we will now open up the Senate Judiciary Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 9th. We have two bills to hear today, both from our friends at the Nevada Department of Corrections. As we did yesterday and we'll be doing from now on, we will start with roll call of the senators who are present. As other senators arrive, I will ask that the secretary mark them present, and I will also keep you guys updated as the meeting progresses on other senators who have joined us. I know that with the virtual format, it's a little bit harder to see people coming and going. But at this time, I'm going to ask our esteemed secretary to take the roll.
Thank you. Vice Chair Canizaro,
Oh, here.
Senator Orenshaw,
Present.
Senator Harris,
Here.
Senator Settlemeyer,
Here.
Senator Hansen,
Here.
Senator Pickard,
Here.
Chair Scheibel.
Here, thank you so much. And with that, we are ready to open up the first hearing on our first bill, which is SB 20. I understand that we have with us today from the Nevada Department of Corrections, Mr. Charles Daniels, Harold Wickham, Ms. Jennifer Ray, Ms. Deborah Striplin, and Robin Feast. I'm so sorry, I'm not sure if I got all those names right, but as always, I do ask that you please identify yourself before you speak, both at the presentation and during the question answer portions of the meeting. So if we could have the presenters for SB 20 go ahead and introduce themselves and give us an overview of the bill, please. I will now open the hearing.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scheibel. This is Director Charles Daniels of the Nevada Department of Corrections. Thank you for allowing the NDOC to present testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee. The very first item I would like to discuss would be SB 20. It's also referenced in NRS 178A.160, and it's Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights. And it was initiated in the 80th session, AB 176, enacting Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights. AB 176 was enacted. Primary presenters in this will be several members of my staff, primarily Harold Wickham, who is a Deputy Director of Programs, and our secondary would be Jennifer Ray. NRS does not in any way address the barriers or safety and security risks this legislation poses to the Department of Corrections to follow for incarcerated survivors. The goal is to continue to use the federally imposed Prison Rape Elimination Act standards intended to address all policy and procedures related to incarcerated survivors of sexual assault, rather than impose legislation which is geared to survivors in the community. So that is my opening statement related to SB 20. And between myself, Deputy Director Harold Wickham, and Jennifer Ray, we should be able to answer any questions you may have.
All right, I know that I have a few questions. I also see that Senator Harris has raised her hand. I will let Senator Harris go first.
How gracious of you, Chair Scheibel. Thank you so much. So I have a question. How many incidents of sexual assault occur in NDOC per year?
No, he's logging on right now.
Hi, this is Director Daniels. We do happen to have subject matter experts. I believe one of them is suffering through some technical difficulties, so we're going to try to answer that through individuals that are here until we can get the other individual on. Is there anyone here that knows that I'll talk to them? All right.
But he also has our pre-coordinator, Judge Strickland, with him.
All right. If I may, first of all, thank you again for the question. This is Director Daniels. Once again, we're struggling with some technical difficulties of our subject matter experts in the northern office. So if I may, I'm going to ask if maybe we could defer to SB 32 until we can get the appropriate individuals available to answer all of the questions.
I think that would make sense if you're indicating that all the subject matter experts are in the other location.
Hi, this is Director Daniels again. Chairman Scheibel, yes, the individuals that were responsible for SB 20 are currently up north, and we have people working with them trying to get that worked out. So if, begging your pardon, if we could transition into SB 32. Oh, well, Chairman Scheibel, I apologize. It appears that they're actually able to now make contact. I heard his voice. So Deputy Director Wickham, there has been a question posed to the Department of Corrections specific to SB 20. And if the person who asked the question, I apologize for not jotting down your name, would re-ask the question, we can now answer your questions. Senator Harris, I apologize.
Chair Scheibel, do you mind if I re-ask my question?
I was just going to ask that you re-ask the question.
Great, thank you so much. So my first question is, how many occurrences of sexual assault does NDOC have each year?
Good afternoon. For the record, Harold Wickham, Deputy Director of Programs for the Department of Corrections. Thank you for the question through the chair to the Honorable Senator Harris. Again, thank you for the question. As of current for 2020, we have 3 listed in our records at this time.
And thank you so much for that, Mr. Wickham. What particular provisions, if you don't mind running us through it, of the Sexual Assault Bill of Rights, Survivors Bill of Rights, is particularly difficult for you all to adhere to?
Okay, thank you again for the question, Senator Harris. For the record, Harold Wickham, Deputy Director. The issue we have is that it doesn't address safety and security. Currently, we fall under the federal mandate of PREA, and PREA covers pretty much everything that the bill covers, but what it doesn't allow for is offenders to go outside of the facility to choose their own advocate or to choose which facilities they want to go to, because logistically that would not be good, and it would also create a safety and security violation for the offender and the community.
And so I just want to make sure I understand your question. Are you suggesting that anyone who is a victim of sexual assault, because they're in prison, allowing them to choose their own advocate makes the community less safe?
For the record, Harold Wickham, yes, ma'am, thank you for the question. It would make the community less safe if an offender, let's say, and I hate to use all these what-if scenarios, but typically some offenders might decide to manipulate the system. And if they wanted to use an advocate, anybody of their choosing, let's just say they chose somebody on death row that wanted to escape really bad. I mean, the potential is there. Or if they chose somebody who could have been a victim that they victimized, it would certainly hinder the victim's ability to testify or to report the incident accurately. So there are some concerns, some unintended consequences.
I guess I understand, but as the law is currently written, couldn't someone in the community choose to have someone on death row be their advocate?
For the record, Harold Wickham, I'm not aware that somebody in the community could pull somebody out from death row as their advocate. I'm not aware of that.
Well, it's my understanding that they have the right to pick anyone that they so choose. And I'm suggesting, just like someone in the community likely isn't going to pick someone on death row in order to try and get them to escape. That may not necessarily be the case just because someone has been sexually victimized in prison.
For the record, Harold Wickham. Yes, ma'am, I agree with you on that. But we're trying to do everything we can to minimize any safety and security risk. And again, as I stated, the PREA requirements covers anybody that's within the facility, so it gives them basically the same Bill of Rights as the state Bill of Rights under the federal PREA mandates.
Hi, this is Director Daniels for the record. Senator Harris, may I address your question if the chair will allow?
Absolutely, go ahead.
All right, thank you for taking the question. My response to that question is that we lose the autonomy that we typically have when allowing individuals that are incarcerated to have representation. Typically, our representation would come from a legal entity from outside of the operation and or from individuals within the agency. Once we allow this to anyone and everyone, and I certainly don't want us appear to be callous to the needs of a sexual assault victim, for those that could find a way to manipulate the system by bringing in, for instance, somebody that may have an interest in a continuing criminal enterprise, like the bringing in of narcotics or such, we would have no ability to limit who comes in just based on the fact the victim or alleged victim could ask to have anyone come in that they wanted. And not that everyone would come in even if they wanted to, but we certainly then would not have the ability to say otherwise unless we could prove that that individual would not be suitable. And that would include former inmates and anyone else that could be involved or we're monitoring for continuing criminal activity or otherwise being monitored. We would just, quite frankly, lose the ability to have an impact on who comes into our facilities, which is why we would prefer to continue to fall under the auspices of the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is better known as PREA, because it does afford us the ability to mitigate who comes in if we believe there to be an issue.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your responses, and I would just encourage you all to find ways to make it a bit more feasible, or at least ask us for ways to make it a bit more feasible to give these prisoners the same rights as opposed to seeking a straight up exemption. Thank you, Chair Scheibel.
Sure. I don't see any other hands at this point, so I'll go ahead and ask my questions. My first question has to do with PREA and how the implementation of the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights has somehow removed NDOC from the auspice of PREA, because it sounds like you said that PREA would stop applying when the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights applies, whereas I had assumed that that NDOC was required to meet the requirements of both. Am I incorrect?
I apologize.
For the record, state your name.
Oh, for the record, my name is Deborah Strickland. I'm the agency PREA coordinator for the Nevada Department of Corrections. Under the Prison Rape Elimination Act standards, we're all mandatory reporters. And under the Victims Bill of Rights, it allows or affords a victim in the community to not have their report provided to law enforcement. So that is one of the concerns, is that all of our staff, victims, and contractors who come into our facilities, if an inmate reports that they were sexually assaulted, we are required to report that. Under the Prison Rape Elimination Act standards, we have multiple provisions that we follow to ensure that we're addressing our victims accordingly. We do have criminal investigators assigned to the Nevada Department of Corrections who conduct our criminal investigations. Under the Bill of Rights, it affords the victim to choose the gender of the investigator. The Nevada Department of Corrections at this time only has 2 female investigators. The rest of our investigators are males, and so we have no females in the North. So that would limit some of our ability to provide the gender that the victim would like to support them through the process. We do have, all of our inmates are transported out to local hospitals. Victim advocates will respond to be there to support our victims during the sexual assault forensic exam. And at that time, they will meet with the victims and be there to support them. We will bring the inmates back and have that ongoing medical care for them upon return. We ensure that they are no longer around the aggressor, and we then will start the investigation at that time. Inmates under the Prison Rape Elimination Act, upon completion of an investigation, are notified of the outcome of the investigation, to include if the inmate has been referred for prosecution, charges have been filed. So they are afforded all the rights of victims in the community as far as the notification, the status of the investigations and the prosecution.
Just still not seeing how having a state statute outlining these rights prevents anybody in the custody of the Nevada Department of Corrections from also enjoying the protections of PREA. Am I missing something?
Our biggest concern was the mandatory reporting component of the requirements of PREA, and then what's allowed for the community victims is they can choose not to have that go forward. And we're mandatory reporters, so that was our biggest concern. So if an inmate was to report that they were sexually abused, and we didn't report it, at that point, we couldn't do a thorough investigation as required by the Prison Rape Elimination Act, because we wouldn't be reporting it or conducting that investigation.
And is that something that's happened with any of the 3 incidents in this year?
As far as not wanting to report, no.
Okay.
All of them came forward. The majority of all of our sexual assaults that are reported are from the victim. Very rarely is it a third party, another inmate or a family member. Most of them will come forward to report the allegation, and at that point, we will start a coordinated response to then address all the things that we need to going forward.
Okay, so the concern that you're citing is that the people that manage the people who are in custody at NDOC are mandatory reporters, and the concern is that people who are reporting sexual abuse or sexual violence within NDOC would not want to talk to a mandatory reporter, but historically we haven't seen that problem arise.
It hasn't been an option. I mean, if they choose not to report, then we would not know, but once they disclose the report, all of our staff are required to report that to the supervisors to initiate the investigation and protocols to protect that individual.
Okay. I just have one more question, which is whether there were any of the other portions of the bill. We've talked about a couple of them, allowing any advocate to be there, allowing people to choose their own medical providers, allowing people to choose the gender of the person investigating their case. Have any of those concerns actually come to fruition in the last 5 years, to the knowledge of anybody here to present today?
For the record, I am not aware of any other concerns, no.
Okay. I see that Senator Orenshaw also has his hand raised. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Chair. And my question may be somewhat duplicative. I think you answered part of it. The director and the deputy director told us there have been 3 sexual assaults in 2020. And I was looking back at the history of Senate Bill 364 from the 2019 session. Senator Spearman brought the original Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights legislation, and it became effective October 1 of 2019. In that time, since her bill became effective, have there been any incidents where the interplay of state law with the federal Prison Rape Elimination Act has caused these kind of problems for the department? I'm just wondering, are the problems something that's a concern that may happen, or has it already happened to the department?
And I'm going to cut in really quick to ask that our presenters please give their name first and last before they speak.
For the record, Harold Wickham, Department of Corrections. At this point, no, we have not had any problems or any indications of problems. However, we're just trying to be forward-thinking and ensure that we're protecting the safety and security of the facilities, the offenders, as well as the community.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I see that Senator Pickard has a question. Please go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I'm not sure if this belongs with Mr. Anthony or the department, but as we go through this discussion, I'm wondering if PREA has given the states the ability to enter this field. Typically, when federal law, when Congress passes a law, it either has to give states the ability to regulate in the same space, or we are preempted from doing that unless we're talking about something outside of the federal law. And so I'm wondering, has this analysis been done to determine whether or not we even have the ability under the Victims' Bill of Rights to enter this field?
For the record, Harold Wickham, Department of Corrections. Through the chair to Senator Pickett. Pickard, thank you so much for the question, sir. And to my knowledge, the answer is no, that has not been done.
Mr. Anthony, have you had a chance to look at this and determine whether or not there's an intersection here that needs to be reviewed?
If you know, Mr. Anthony, could you weigh in?
Yes, thank you, Chair Scheibel, Nick Anthony from the Legal Division. Our office, historically, before every bill is drafted, we conduct thorough analysis on constitutional issues, preemption issues. So yes, is my understanding when this bill was originally came forward in 2019 from Senator Spearman, the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights, our office did look into those issues and made a determination that state law is not preempted.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that on this specific issue, which may or may not have been discussed at the time, of course I was here but wasn't privy to those conversations. It just seems that if we're talking about a conflict between the two, there may be an issue. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
All right, and I do not see any other hands raised or questions at this time. All right, so I will go ahead and thank the presenters for this valuable information and open up the floor for testimony in support of SB 20.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support of SB 20, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in support of SB 20, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, there are no callers in support of SB 20.
All right, then we will close testimony in support and open up testimony in opposition to SB 20.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition of SB 20, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in opposition of SB 20, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits 725, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Hello, and thank you, Chair. My name is Nick Shepak, S-H-E-P-A-C-K. I'm a Policy and Program Associate with the ACLU of Nevada. As our Policy Director, Holly Wellborn, testified last session during the hearing for the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill, we have come to realize that we have not fostered an environment in which women feel they can come forward, particularly when it comes to allegations of sexual assault. This fact is even more true when it comes to incarcerated women. The Bill of Rights, however, does not only protect women, but it protects everyone. And this should not include just those on the outside, but also incarcerated people. While PREA overlaps with the Survivors' Bill of Rights, it does not mirror them. And eliminating incarcerated people from the Survivors' Bill of Rights will greatly reduce the rights of incarcerated sexual assault survivors. We can work to rectify any conflicts between PREA and the Survivors' Bill of Rights. This bill, however, does not do that. We understand the safety concerns raised by the Nevada Department of Corrections, but those too could be addressed in much more nuanced legislation. If PREA regulations are stronger than the Bill of Rights, those should be followed, and likely legally must be. But the Bill of Rights has additional necessary protections for survivors that should be available to all Nevadans. We are happy to work with the department to build a policy that addresses safety and security while also protecting victims' rights. This bill, however, fails to do that. This bill does not fix the issues raised by the department and strips protections away from survivors of sexual violence. This is a sweeping response to nuanced issues with clear negative consequences for survivors of sexual assault and should not be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 611, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Good afternoon, Senators. This is John Piro, John-Piro of the Clark County Public Defender's Office. We share the same concerns that were just voiced by Mr. Shepak of the ACLU, and we would suggest using the same tack suggested by Senator Harris. Instead of wholesale elimination of incarcerated persons from the Survivors' Bill of Rights, let's go and analyze it. I looked up PREA prior to our conversation or on this bill today and after our conversation with Director Wickham, and I want to thank him for meeting with us on such a speedy basis to discuss this bill. But even after our conversation, we informed him that at this point we are still opposed. Hearing the ever-brilliant Mr. Anthony's analysis, seeing that this the state law did not interfere with federal preemption, we would say that it would be a better tack to go through the Survivors' Bill of Rights and see what is not practical in a prison setting and move forward from there rather than wholesale elimination. And with that, I'll leave my opposition.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 153. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Danielle Staple. I'm the Executive Director for the Rape Crisis Center in Southern Nevada. And sorry, the spelling of my name is D-A-N-I-E-L-E. Last name is S-T-A-P-L-E. I just want to join Mr. Shepak and Mr. Piro in very similar comments that it is our thought that if there is conflict between PREA and the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights, that that bill be modified to state that when in conflict that PREA would take preeminence. But you know, other than that, we feel very strongly that those who are incarcerated when their sexual assault takes place, and also because we feel this could impact individuals who may have been assaulted when they were in the community, and then once they are incarcerated, there may be issues with them receiving the support and advocacy that they need to assure that their case continues to move forward with all the full rights that they are entitled to as survivors, even if they do find themselves incarcerated while their case is in progress. We also work very closely with the Department of Corrections to provide services and support through PREA. We have a full-time PREA advocate that works very hard on behalf of inmates who are incarcerated when they're assaulted. And we've already come up with ways through the support and guidance of Just Detention International and other national experts in this arena to address issues like the mandated reporter issue that Ms. Strickland identified earlier and other barriers. And there are many ways of working around those issues successfully, and we would certainly advocate for continuing to do so to afford all individuals the maximum amount of rights as survivors as they are entitled to. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 936. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Hi, my name is Jamila Lewis. You spell my name Jameeleh, last name Lewis, Lewis. I am here as an individual community member, as well as an advocate with the Mass Liberation Project. So I definitely echo the same sentiments as everyone who has come before me today. As a Nevadan, I think that the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights was a step in the right direction. After researching some information about PREA and being quite informed myself, I think that one thing that was forgotten about in this conversation and that we really need to think about is that people who are in part of NDOC may not always be in our regular sense of incarceration. They may be in the community, they may be in parole, probation, and they may be in transitional housing as well, which PREA also applies to. But some folks may still choose to have access to a community advocate or some types of services. So I think that allowing not only the PREA standards to apply to those who are incarcerated, but also to apply to those who are anywhere within the system, specifically within NDOC, access to the Survivors Sexual Assault Bill of Rights would honestly do us justice rather than an injustice by taking folk, again, as Ms. Staples said, or Mrs. Staples said, out of the bill. And I think there are ways in which we can definitely address mandated reporting, confidentiality, and even getting people the investigators that they're asking for. So I hope that you all really think about how this will not only impact those who are incarcerated within NDOC, but also just those who may be impacted by NDOC. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you have a nice day.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits, 130. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
Yes, hello, my name is Jody, Jodi Hocking, Hocking. I am the founder of Return Strong, which is a prisoners' rights organization representing, we have about 1,000 members right now. In 2018, the Bureau of Justice Statistics reported that from 2012 to 2015, there were close to 25,000 allegations of sexual victimization in prisons, jails, and other correctional facilities. The number of allegations nearly tripled in 3 years, with allegations in prisons and jails increasing by 180%, and staff on inmate sexual misconduct increasing by 191%. While these statistics are alarming, we know that the numbers are likely much higher as sexual victimization is dramatically underreported due to the stigma that surrounds it. By excluding incarcerated people from the protections of sexual assault, the Sexual Assault Bill of Rights, the state of Nevada is perpetuating this stigma and sending a message that justice is merit-based and victims must reach a certain level of worthiness to be deserving of justice. This decision will empower perpetrators and increase risk for thousands of individuals across the state. There is a non-binary relationship between offending and victimization, and people not only can, but often do hold both of these identities at the same time. Having committed a crime does not exempt incarcerated people from ever becoming victims, and therefore should not serve as a barrier to their access to rights and protections.
We should not and cannot go down the slippery slope of subjectivity, deciding who is and who is not worthy of victims' rights and protections. So the question is, do we really believe that sexual assault survivors, all sexual assault survivors, are deserving of a victim's Bill of Rights? If we do, you'll not further marginalize the extremely vulnerable population of incarcerated people by withholding rights that you previously deemed necessary and just for sexual assault victims to have access to. Return Strong stands alongside all of the people that have spoken before us in opposition of this bill. Does not need to be black or white. We can go back and look and make sure that the concerns are addressed without withdrawing that protection for all incarcerated people. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition of SB 20, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition of SB 20, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits 771, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now. All right, moving on, Chair. Caller with the last 3 digits of 318, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes, and you may begin now.
Good afternoon. This is Kendra Birchie, KendraBertschy, with the Washoe County Public Defender's Office. I'm going to try that again. Sorry. This is Kendra Birchie with the Washoe County Public Defender's Office, KENDRA, Birchie, BERTSCHY. And I appreciate that Deputy Director Wickman was willing to speak with us this afternoon or this morning to address our concerns. We really appreciate that. Chair Scheibel and members of the Senate Judiciary, I'm testifying today in opposition to this bill because we're really undoing the good work that was put forth in the Sexual Survivors Bill of Rights. The Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights was aimed at providing services to ensuring that survivors understood the rights that they had to feel protected and to feel comfortable with coming forward past the stigma as being a victim of sexual assault. It said that all victims deserve support and justice. We feel that this bill does exactly the opposite. Instead, it's stripping the rights, stripping the protection, even if just alone in the name of saying that someone who's incarcerated is not worthy of receiving the protections from the Sexual Assault Survivor Bills of Rights. This furthers the belief that if you are incarcerated, you do not have any rights. We believe that this will undermine the work that was done, and especially in terms of, you've heard Mr. Pirro and myself say over and over, instead of just increasing penalties, we should be providing services, and that's what this bill had done. I would just note that I agree with the statements that came before me, and in a publication from the Nevada Department of Corrections, the Prison Rape Elimination Act PREA annual report coming from the calendar year 2019, it indicated that in 2019 there were 6 substantiated allegations of inmate sexual abuse and 2 substantiated allegations of staff on inmate. So with just that in mind, we do need to protect all of our community members, so we are in opposition to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller with the last 3 digits 771, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now. Once again, caller with the last 3 digits 771. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Then slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now. And Chair, that caller doesn't seem to be responding, so at this time there are no more callers in the queue for opposition at this time.
Thank you so much. In that case, we will close testimony in opposition to SB 20, and we will open up testimony in the neutral position on SB 20.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral standing on SB 20, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. If you have just joined the call, we are currently on neutral testimony to SB 20. And if you'd like to give neutral testimony, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits 460, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin now.
My name is Elia Solano, E-L-I-A-S-O-L-A-N-O. I am a student researcher at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I study criminal justice issues and I specialize in corrections. I participated in numerous studies where I was able to listen to interviews people currently incarcerated in the Nevada Department of Corrections control. I speak in opposition of this bill for the very reasons that have been previously mentioned here. I echo them, but I want to add that while the PREA law does overlap in a lot of the regulations as the Bill of Rights the Bill of Rights has more, and there's no reason that we should ever take away rights. When the federal government give incarcerated people rights, the state should always add rights, especially when it comes to victims of sexual assault. But the point that's more salient when it comes to the Department of Corrections, the Bureau of Prisons actually, to track this data via PREA, is that as often as people don't report, as often as we don't collect the data, they also only collect 10% of a sample size in the state. So what about the other 90% that don't get to report? Every inmate has the ability to report, but they are much less likely to do that if somebody doesn't ask them. So the state has the responsibility to take it, to hold accountable when someone sexually assaults another inmate or an officer does it. We should be asking those questions rather than waiting for that person to come forward. That's my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. And Chair, there are no more callers in the neutral standing at this time.
All right, and I'll ask the esteemed secretary to please note that Elia Solano's testimony was given during the neutral period of testimony, but was actually in opposition. I appreciate that we're all learning this new system, and at this early time in this session, it's not a big deal. I'll allow the testimony to remain on the record, but in the future, we'll ask everybody to listen carefully for the cues to testify at the right time. And staff at BPS, if we have nobody else on the phone line, then I will close the hearing on SB 20, and I will open the hearing on SB 32. I believe we again have Charles Daniels, Harold Wickham, Jennifer Ray, and Robin Feast here to present the bill.
Hi, Chair Scheibel. Once again, this is Director Daniels from the Nevada Department of Corrections, first name Charles. I'm going to start the conversation regarding SB 32, which is also covered in NRS 209.4236. Programs of treatment for offenders with substance use or co-occurring disorders established by the Director of the Department of Corrections. This previous bill died due to community amendment that was submitted and increased fiscal note from $0 to $844,600 during 2019 through 2020, as well as 1,44,492 in the 2021. Our primary persons that will be discussing this will be Harold Wickham and Robin Feast. This clarifies and modernizes the establishment and operations of programs for treatment of substance abuse disorders within the Nevada Department of Corrections. This amendment clarifies that programs for the treatment of offenders be established and maintained as evidence-based or based on best practices supported by research. And that these programs are newly defined as, quote, programs of treatment for offenders with substance use disorders or co-occurring disorders, end of quote. Previously, the term substance abusers was not well defined and is no longer accepted terminology within the field. Under these amendments, the term substance abuse disorders is defined as a cluster of cognitive, behavioral, and psychological symptoms indicating that the individual continues using substance despite significant substance-related problems, as defined and cited in the DSM Model 5 as published in 2013. In addition, the term, quote, co-occurring disorder, unquote, is defined as the presence of at least one mental disorder and at least one substance use disorder as defined by the current edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is the acronym DSM-MD. Also, the definition cited is screening and assessment of co-occurring disorders in the justice system by the SAMHSA 2015, of which there will be further identification as to what that is momentarily. The changes are more in line with NDOC's efforts to only provide evidence-based programs in order to reduce recidivism and protect the communities of Nevada for the safety of its citizens. I would, Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to turn this over to Deputy Director Wickham, and you can take it from here.
Please go ahead, Director Wickham.
For the record, Deputy Director Harold Wickham, Nevada Department of Corrections. At this point, I think that pretty much summarizes where we're at. There's just basically some terminology changes in this request. So pending your questions.
All right, if that concludes the presentation, I will open up the floor for questions from members of the committee. Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, Chair. And my question is, in any of the NDOC facilities, do these therapeutic communities, as outlined in the current statute, currently exist? And where are the inmates that are getting the drug rehabilitation separate from the general population? Or is that not something that currently happens?
Robin Feast, Substance Abuse Program Director for Department of Corrections. Our current substance use disorder programs, our facilities are segregated from general population use.
Thank you. And Chair, may I have a brief follow-up?
Go ahead.
Thank you. And Deputy Director, is that at each NDOC facility, there's a separate sort of therapeutic community for rehabilitation, or only at certain ones?
Robin Feast, Substance Abuse Program Director for Department of Corrections. We currently have programming at Warm Springs Correctional Center, Southern Desert Correctional Center, Three Lakes Valley Conservation Camp, and Florence McClure Women's Correctional Center.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Thank you, Chair. And Chair, with your indulgence, may I have one last question?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So Deputy Director, then if this passes, those sort of separate areas for rehabilitation be disbanded, and will there be more programs at all the facilities, or what do you envision happening if this passes into law?
Robin Feast, Substance Abuse Program Director for Department of Corrections. By modernizing this language, it fits what the field accepts as acceptable terminology. It'll actually match what we already do within the department and allow us the flexibility to go after grants that offer us to expand to other programs, including co-occurring programs.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions on this bill, SB 32? I am not seeing any questions, so I will open up the floor for testimony in support.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on SB 32, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in support of SB 32, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, at this time, there are no callers to give testimony in support.
All right, then we will close testimony in support and open up testimony in opposition.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on SB 30, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Excuse me. To testify in opposition of SB 32, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, at this time, there are no callers in opposition.
All right, then we will move to testimony in the neutral position.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on SB 32, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in the neutral position on SB 32, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, there are no callers in neutral standing at this time.
All right, then we will close the hearing on SB 32. And that concludes this portion of our agenda. We have one more item left, which is public comment. I will ask that the phone lines be open at this time for public comment.
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers to give public comment at this time.
All right, in that case, we are finished with today's meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee. We are adjourned. I will note for the record that due to our schedule, we will not be having a meeting tomorrow, but I will see you all again on Thursday at 1 p.m. Thank you, and meeting adjourned.